When art and spirit meet, that is where you find author-illustrator Joanne Fink. But she is so much more. And while her studio is located in Orlando, Florida, her reach is international, and her mission to inspire others to create beauty in the world. Joanne Fink, the subject of this edition of Spiritual Journey.
I'm a spiritual seeker, and I walk in three worlds. I walk in the world of creativity, the world of faith and spirituality, and more recently, the world of grief. And I've tried to combine all of these in the work that I do and the inspiration that I try to offer. I have been faith-based since I can remember. I liked going to Hebrew school in second grade, and youth group was a big part of my adolescence, and I started keeping kosher when I left my parents' house at 18, and I still keep kosher, so 40 years later. And to me, everything is connected on some level. And my whole faith journey has been one to grow closer to God. And I do that through a Jewish lens. One of the pivotal moments I had was with a Hebrew school teacher, Rabbi Kenny Berger, and he talked about connection in a way that I still remember it 40-some years later. It was music that really connected me spiritually. Debbie Friedman, of blessed memory, was a song leader, and her seminal album, Sing Unto God, came out when I was in high school. And it changed worship for a lot of people, and I was one of them. And that inspired me to want to connect through music. And I am fond of saying that if I had half the talent in my throat that I do in my fingers, I would be in a different line of work. But I've been a cantorial soloist off and on since college. I wanted to go to art school, and my parents did not approve of that. They didn't think I could make a living doing art, and they thought I should get a good education, and I now have a good education, and I met my husband in college, so that was a huge blessing. I met Andy when I was 18, and we got married right out of school. I majored in sociology, and I have always wanted to understand why people want to do things. And as I have gotten older, I care a lot about supporting other people on their journey.
Still, art was her passion. After college, she opened her first studio and did calligraphy and ketubot, artistic Jewish wedding contracts. Not long afterward, at a stationery show, Joanne became inspired to create greeting cards, particularly those with inspiring messages.
But I think we all pray to the same God. And so for most of my career, I have developed products for the gift, craft, stationery, and Christian markets. And I love having my work bring people closer to whatever they think their higher power is.
Her books include Flowers of Faith, among other titles, and her calligraphy invites people to interpret God's Word with color and personal reflection.
I am attracted to uplifting sentiments, and it's what I try to do in my work. I create inspirational content. And when I was looking for a name for my brand, Zenspirations, it comes because I get in a Zen-like state when I put pen to paper, and because my work has an inspirational content, and that is deliberate. And when I teach people both how to draw and how to write, I like to help them tap into their own innate creative gifts and hone them and figure out how to communicate them either visually or through the written word in an inspiring way, in a way that will touch other people's hearts. I think for me, drawing is a form of meditation. I do some other meditating, but when I'm in the zone, you know, it is very relaxing. You can lose track of time. If this is your path to connection, I think you can tell what you're passionate about and what you ought to focus more on by how much you look forward to doing it and how quickly the time flies when you're doing it. A lot of people tell me that they are not creative, and I think what they mean by that is that they are not artistically creative. I think we are all inherently creative. For those of us who walk in faith, you know, we are created in God's image. There's a spark of innate creativity in every human being. How that comes out is different. You know, for some it's musical, for some it's numbers. You know, my husband, who was a software engineer, used to say he was a very creative programmer. And I don't know diddly squat about programming, but I know that what he did was almost an art form in what he was passionate about. And I think that helping people find their innate gifts and honing them so they can express themselves creatively, not necessarily artistically, but creatively in whatever they are innately gifted at, is really important.
Blessed with family and friends and creative gifts that comfort and uplift so many others, Joanne's life took a tragic turn, one that impacted her spiritual journey and her art in ways she never imagined.
In August of 2011, 2 days before our son turned 12 and 9 days before our daughter turned 17, Andy had a heart attack and died. He was 53. And my life ended that day because the life that I had had with him, I couldn't go back to without him. In the blink of an eye, I lost my husband, my business partner, my IT director, my finance manager, my best friend, and most devastatingly, my children's father. And I didn't know anything about grief. We were so totally unprepared. I think if I had not had to get the kids off to school, I wouldn't have gotten out of bed. You know, life, the rest of the world kept on going, and my life was not functional. And one of the things that really made a difference for me early on, we had a lot of people at Andy's funeral. We had a lot of support in the first few weeks, and then everyone went back to their own lives. And I still hadn't figured out what to do with my life. Now mind, I still haven't figured out what to do with my life then. But 8 years ago, I was so shell-shocked and uncertain. And about 6 weeks after Andy died, I got a card from a friend saying, I waited until all the hubbub settled down to let you know I'm thinking about you and I care. And that really touched me. And I had another friend who sent me a card every month or so for the first 6 months after Andy died. And every time I got a note from her, and they weren't sympathy cards per se, they were just little newsy cards, hello, how you doing? It let me know that there was one person who really understood that my life was not functional and I wasn't alone. And I think that when you are on a grief journey, keeping hope in your heart and knowing that you are not alone is critical to getting through the early days. Andy and I were married 29 years, and on what would have been our 30th wedding anniversary, nobody said anything to me. Not my parents, not my in-laws, not my children, not my friends. And I was devastated because it was my 30th wedding anniversary and my husband was not here. And I wanted to talk about it. And nobody gave me that sacred space or that window of opportunity. No one even acknowledged it. And I have wonderfully supportive family and friends, more so than most, and I'm very blessed in that way. And when I stopped crying a few days later, I realized if my very supportive friends and family didn't get it, because none of them had what I call a profound loss, they didn't understand my need to say Andy's name and share his story. Nobody else got it either. And that was the catalyst for the work I do today.
After Andy's death, Joanne started journaling every morning. Her words gave her comfort, words that would lead her to create a book.
And so when you lose someone you love, there's a hole in your heart that nothing can fill. When you lose someone you love, suddenly the world seems upside down and confusing. When you lose someone you love, you lose a piece of yourself. And after I did this for, I think, 10 months, when you lose someone you love, some days just surviving is all you can do. So after I had done this every day for 10 months and I had 8 or 9 of these little moleskin books filled, I realized that I had a book.
But Joanne didn't stop at the book. She returned to her artistic roots with drawing, teaching, creating coloring books, and starting a creative community on social media. And yet, she would also spread her creative wings in direct support, with and for others also walking a similar heartbroken path.
As I was going through my own grief journey, I was blessed to connect with a lot of other people on theirs. Early on, I desperately needed to talk to another single mom because I didn't know how to help my kids grieve while I was grieving. I didn't know anything about grief. I did not realize that grief impacts you not just emotionally, but cognitively, physically, spiritually, socially, creatively. There's no part of your life that is not impacted by what I call a profound loss. My husband died a little more than 8 years ago, unexpectedly. And I am a much more compassionate person now than I was beforehand because I understand how devastating that is. And I've devoted a lot of time the last few years to developing products that will help commemorate and celebrate the lives of those we love who are not physically here anymore. And also products that will bring comfort to people who are going through really challenging times, whether that's loss of a loved one, loss of your own health, being a caregiver for somebody.
Her product, though, is also her personal engagement, helping people find their equilibrium after a loss, honoring a loved one's memory.
So in the work that I'm doing now, I mentor people who are grieving, mostly widows. I co-lead a local widows group, and I am the second youngest in the group. I just turned 60, and my oldest widow is 89, and she's a gourmet cook and is a total pistol and joy to be around. And it is a joy to me to embrace newer widows. One of my core values is tikkun olam, which, if you translate it from the Hebrew, means repair of the world. Because, let's face it, our world, especially in recent years, is increasingly broken. And until we all work together to fix our little part of it, it's going to stay broken. And I believe that we are each here for a specific purpose. The general purpose is to make a difference and help heal the world. But the way that I do that is different than the way you do that, because your gifts are different than mine. But one of the things that excites me is to get people who are aware that they are creative beings, meaning they like to write, they like to draw, they like to letter, they like to doodle, they like to color, to start thinking about using art and self-expression as a way not just to heal the world, but to help heal their own hearts. I strive to be a light in the world, and light is my acronym for love, inspire, give, heal, transform. Because I think when we reach out in love and inspire by example of giving from our hearts, we not only can heal a little piece of the world or someone else's heart, we heal ourselves. And that is when transformation occurs. And I think resiliency and transformation are inextricably intertwined.
And she knows well the power of prayer. Among her coloring books, a prayer journal.
Here is the prayer I say every morning: Dear God, please bless those I love and those they love. And it's colorable for people who like to color things. So the front of the book has a prayer list so that you can write down the people that you are praying for. I pray for a lot of people, and I find if I don't write down their names and why I'm praying for them, that sometimes I forget. And then I feel badly that I have forgotten so-and-so. And so I keep a list, and I actually have a reminder in my phone that goes off Sundays at 3 o'clock, so that if I have not managed to look at my list that day or that week, I can go back and see who I'm praying for.
To help others along their creative path, as well as their spiritual and grief journeys, she's created cards and comforting, uplifting emoji images in an app. She's also started a task force to help create rituals and recommendations for grief support during the 2020 pandemic. Joanne's book, My Spiritual Journey, a guided journal with questions and reflections to light your path, was published in early 2020.
It's a synthesis almost of the creativity work that I do, the spiritual work that I do, and I wrote it for people who are going through challenging transitions, to help them dig into their souls and figure out what is important to them at this particular point in their lives.
She wrote the book in part for her children and for other widows.
When You have to reinvent your life. You know, for so many years, if you've been married, it was Joanne and Andy. All one word, Joanne and Andy. I met Andy when I was 18. I've needed to figure out who Joanne is after Andy died. And I have written this book, My Spiritual Journey, as a guided journal which will help other people who are going through whatever type of life transition figure out what really matters to them. And so basically, it's all about discovering your purpose, because if you know what you're here to do, then you can do it. If you don't know what you're here to do, it's really hard to figure that out. And there are many things that inform your purpose.
One's perspective, she says, how one looks at the world, all but determines one's path.
I think we all get caught up in our own unique point of view, which could be caused by our upbringing or by circumstances. But when we can step back and look at things from other people's points of view, I think it's especially important now because there's so much animosity in the world because we think we're right. And we are passionate about being right. And frankly, I think it's more important to be kind than to be right. I don't care about being right, but I do care a lot about being kind.
She wrote and illustrated a book about kindness and making a difference, a single act she knows can transform the world.
I want to kindle a flame inside everyone so they can go out and use their innate creative gifts to light the way for others.
Her company's tagline captures that emotion.
The tagline for Zenspirations is live by inspiring others to fly. And that's what I try to do.
Among the reflections she shares in My Spiritual Journey is about perspective.
You cannot always change the world around you, but you can change how you look at the world. Sometimes the road we travel is bumpy. My road has been particularly bumpy. And I realized after Andy died that the only thing I get to choose is my attitude. I cannot control other people. I cannot control the weather. I cannot control anything except what I personally want to show up as in the world. And I want to show up as love and light. And having a positive attitude is really critical to doing that. We grow spiritually the most when times are tough. We don't have to grow when things are going well because there's no need. So the questions that I've asked in here, how have your views on life changed over the past decade? Or what recent experiences have caused a shift in your perspective? Or when you're dealing with a serious challenge, who or what may be able to help you look at the situation through a different lens?
Exercises at the end of each chapter help people chart their positivity and gratitude. Knowing this, Joanne says, can help a person become less dogmatic.
And I know we all sometimes get up in arms about something, and that's the point that I like to detach and say, okay, what's really going on here? Why? What am I afraid of? Because I think when we start building walls, it's usually because we're reaching out from a place of fear rather than a place of love. And for me, it's all about love. I've learned to take things more one day at a time, one step at a time, one breath at a time, because we are not guaranteed tomorrow. But I would like to change the culture of grief in America. I would like us to, as a society, not be afraid to talk about the impact that grief has. I think it's sort of like mental illness. You know, we can't help with this issue if we're not willing to talk about it. And grieving is a serious issue, and as we age, it becomes a more serious issue because we lose our social support as we lose our friends. And so I guess looking ahead, I would love for my art to help heal hearts, and I would like for my books to help people build and find communities that they can connect and grow with.
Thanks for watching. Go to AIBTV.com/donate to support programming like this. Your contributions